Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So before we get to the questions from texters and from callers, Attorney General, I just wanted to ask you, we're at a very high temperature, uneasy point in the United States of America since this Charlie Kirk assassination. What do you make of the aftermath and the kind of vitriol back and forth and the efforts not to be so vitriolic, which seem not to be much heated? What do you think?
Well, one, I don't hide my faith. I am deeply faithful. I consider myself a believer, and I talk about my faith in Jesus and spreading the gospel quite publicly, regardless, right, of this position. It's the foundation of my life. And so I, too, like everybody else, was horrified by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Yet I was also horrified by the assassination and killing of the Minnesota speaker and her husband and the targeted attacks on the Minnesota officials. Equally horrified by the arson attempt on Governor Shapiro or the kidnapping attempt on Gretchen Whitmore. So I remain horrified by the political violence in this country and have said unequivocally it's unacceptable and it has to stop. And I think what's equally important is that our response to those incidents has to be consistent. This isn't about parties. This isn't about what state you're in, left, right, Democrat, Republican, Independent. This is about modeling for our children. I'm a mom, but also modeling for every single person who lives in this country that we live in a democratic society, and there's an expectation and a requirement that we have dialogue that is peaceful, and at the end of the day, agree to disagree. And if you don't like someone's rhetoric, well, don't go to their rally, right? If you don't like someone's politics, well, don't vote for them. But at no point should anyone be in fear of being killed. And let me also be clear, while I am a believer and speak to those values openly, I had real and absolute concern and at times anger with respect to the rhetoric coming from Charlie Kirk, especially when it came to, say, black women or black leaders. They were derogatory, hateful, condescending, to say the least.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned being a woman of faith, because we had former Governor Deval Patrick here yesterday, and he mentioned being a man of faith. And he talked about how people that are supposedly like Charlie Kirk, or a lot of people that are in the Republican Party now, they're Christians. But Deval Patrick said he had difficulty with their calling themselves Christians because they seem to be reading a different New Testament than what Deval Patrick was reading, because it talks about including, not excluding, not judging, accepting, and the poor, the poor, the poor. So
and the widow and the foreigner.
Yeah. So how do you see that as a woman of faith?
I first of all, it was great that the governor was here, my former boss who I worked with as an attorney, and I still have the utmost respect and admiration for him. Yes, I simply ask folks, where's the Jesus in it, right? Jesus, at the end of the day, whether you have read the Bible from front to cover, which I have several times, whether you've memorized scriptures or not, Jesus was about love, period. And it is, in this day and age, love that many will say will win the day, ultimately. And so for me, when I hear someone spreading the gospel, I appreciate anyone who frankly would get out there, even those who are of a different faith tradition, to talk about why they hold that faith tradition and why it's important to them. In my office of close to 700 people, there are numerous and several faith traditions. I don't ask anyone to hide that. And there's some with none, and that's okay. At the end of the day, I appreciate anyone who would have the courage in this culture and society to stand up and spread the gospel and spread the word. At the same time, let's complete the picture with respect to who is speaking to some of their gospel, because if they are adding additional layers of offensiveness in it, including having a derogatory commentary about Justice Jackson of the Supreme Court, or his commentary on replacement theory, or black pilots, absolutely offensive. And so I, if anything, get out there and model what I sort of not only model my faith, but most importantly, model for folks who are around me what Jesus actually stood for, both the Old and the New Testament. And I think that's important for believers in this day and age to stand up but with full authenticity. I welcome folks all the time with love and affection, without judgment. That is not my role to cast judgment on anybody. We're all sinners is what our gospel says. And at the end of the day, we have to choose how we're going to reconcile that sin in order to, of course, go to the other side. So I have been, everywhere I go at least, making sure that the picture is complete with respect to Charlie Kirk and all of his statements.
One last Kirk-related question, and then we're going to get to your calls and texts, 877-301-8970. Obviously, that's the voice of Andrea Joy Campbell, Attorney General of Massachusetts. In accord with what the decision was from the President of the United States, from Donald Trump, after the flags were lowered to half-staff on Friday for 9/11, Thursday, I think, for 9/11. The flags remained at half-staff in our state and a number of states run by liberal/progressive governors because Trump lowered them for Charlie Kirk. I try not to speak for Marjorie, but I know we shared I don't know how to describe it. I was troubled by it and surprised.
I was surprised that we did it in Massachusetts.
Are you supportive of the flag being lowered or remain lowered by the governor?
I mentioned all of those incidents of political violence, and I mentioned, obviously, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but also of the Minnesota speaker and her husband and so many others. And my firm belief is that you have to be consistent in your response. And here you have a federal administration that has not been consistent. It lowered the flag for Charlie Kirk, but not for this woman who was an elected official who was targeted at her home and killed along with her family member. Everyone should be horrified by that. She wasn't even outside at work. She was targeted at her home along with other elected officials. So we have to be consistent. So we're going to lower the flag. You lower it for everybody. Here I get where the governor is. The statute requires that she lower the flag when the federal government lowers it. That is crystal clear. There's no interpretation on that. Yet I think at the same time, when you do something like that, then you have to offer an explanation publicly and why. Because, for example, I was engaging with folks in the Black community who were upset by the flag lowering for Charlie Kirk because of his offensive comments directed towards Black folks and other categories of folks too. And they did not understand the rationale. They absolutely didn't know what the law was. And at the same time, we're also dealing with a policy issue where we had a state employee working for MassDOT who died on the job, and his family out of Lexington, and his family wanted the flag lowered. That didn't happen because it's not crystal clear according to the statute, even though we thought, well, we got to change that. All public employees who die on the job, we should be lowering the flag. So I think it actually presents an opportunity for the governor and the administration and the legislature, obviously, because it's a law on the books, to really think about what the law is and how it's being used, sadly, and weaponized in many ways to only lower it for one particular individual and not the other horrors of political violence we're seeing in this country. And at the end of the day, because I know this is consuming so much news and attention, every single person in this country, every American, right, should absolutely be concerned about the political divisiveness and violence that is occurring right now. And we have an opportunity to choose to show up differently. I love my job. I love being the AG of this state. And as I do the work, I do it with thoughtfulness. We take on the Trump administration, not because it's personal. I pray for Trump, just like I was horrified by the attempted assassination on then candidate Trump. And I called that out. I didn't mince my words. And so all of us should be horrified by all of these attempts and sort of have a reset, even in our own personal encounters. There were folks who I think get angry and don't agree to disagree. So this is an opportunity for all of us to sort of think about how we adjust our own behavior and then hold elected officials accountable to calling out this political violence and at the end of the day, calling for it to end.
Let's take some calls, 877-301-8970.
I was just waving to the people in the back. Thank you all very much.
Yes, they're waving back, some of them.
NPM crew.
Not all of them,
by
the way. Some of them are.
Lucis.
Some are my team members. Others are helping us make sure this works. I'm grateful.
Lucis from someplace in Massachusetts. Thank you for calling.
Hi there.
Are you there?
Hello? Luceth? Let's put Luceth on hold. We'll get back to Luceth after we try
Naomi from Cambridge. Thank you for calling.
You're on with the Attorney General. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure.
Attorney General, we met at Juneteenth, Boston Juneteenth, not last year, but the year before. So Anyway, hello again.
Hi, and thank you for calling in.
I'm calling because I'm very fearful and concerned about what's going on in the DA's office in Norfolk County. There's, in terms of political divisiveness, it creates fear that's really inhibiting. And honestly, seeing what the selective prosecution that's going on and just the misconduct in general with like the Brian Walsh case and with, aiding tyranny, it feels very personal. And, I'm wondering whether you're looking into that at all. I know that my understanding is that aiding tyranny, the Morrissey asked you to look into it, and you said no. But now it's in, I don't know, they're still going after it about speech, and it's disturbing in this day and age that journalists are being attacked like that.
By the way, Aiden Kearney, for those who don't recognize the name, goes by Turtle Boy. He's more familiar there. Naomi, thanks for the question.
Karen Reed trial, we should say, he was involved in.
Yeah, Attorney General.
Great. So most of these matters are still within Norfolk County, still within the current district attorney. If we have anything that is open, God bless you, Marjorie. And first of all, thank you, Naomi, for calling in. If we have anything that's open or an open investigation, I can't comment on it publicly. I can comment on the fact that actions out of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office that involve Turtle Boy are absolutely public as of right now because it's an open matter. And then, of course, if there are other things in our office that are investigations and are open, I can't comment. That being said, I do think at the end of the day, whether we're talking about accountability and political violence and elected officials speaking up to say something, all of us are elected. We're all in these roles because the people put us here. And most importantly, after the people put us here, to your point, Naomi, it was great to meet you, but you're staying engaged. People should hold us accountable. They ask us to do certain things. They want us to show up in a certain way. They want us to have transparency, accountability, et cetera. All of us are elected, and they have the power of the ballot, which sometimes are more powerful than even our tools in our respective offices to hold folks accountable, and they shouldn't forget that.
Let's talk about an investigation briefly that matters to the people listening in Western Mass that is no longer open, Springfield Gardens. Tell people what it is and what you did.
So Springfield Gardens, and kudos to the entire team, Andy, who is our interim director of the Springfield office. We have an office in Springfield. This has been a victory in so many different ways. So it is a housing case of the most egregious incidents and has been around for some years. I actually inherited this case in thousands of complaints from tenants, including former tenants, who complained about a range of sanitary housing code violations that they had to endure, including lack of heat, lack of hot water, pest infestations, lack of security, where folks would sort of come in and out of a building so they didn't feel safe, effects on the public health of their children who were living in these conditions, just egregious to say the least. And what's worse, they were expected to pay rent, and they did. And so we got involved deeply in this case, made it a priority when I got into office, because not only do I believe in regional equity, I never will forget Western Mass and Springfield, and got a victory recently. We were holding the landlord of these properties, and it was the largest, frankly, landlord at the time, is based in New Jersey. And so the victory is twofold. One is this landlord and management company can never operate in Massachusetts ever again. And frankly, I think that was really important to so many folks. In addition, it's I think it's now over $10 million. Is that right? So I'll make
She's
sure I have the number.
motioning to her colleague if you're not
because we had
watching
another
on
settlement
YouTube.
recently, but it's millions of dollars that will be allowed to, one, force the company to forgive rents.
$7.5 million.
Thank you, $7.5 million.
That's why I'm here, Attorney General.
And of course, I'm looking at all my notes.
What else do you want to know?
Because one time I was on here and I think I added like $10 million to a settlement, and it was lesser than that. So I want to be accurate. So it was that's to forgive rents and to say to all those folks who have harmed, you don't get that money from these tenants. But the other is we have over $2 million, 2.5, to actually provide meaningful restitution. So we are actively talking to tenants, tenant organizers who never let this case go, and so many stakeholders involved to figure out how we can get this money and restitution back into the pockets of these tenants who deserve it. And so more to come on that.
Great.
Attorney General, we have a couple of very troubling, there are a lot of troubling instances of ICE taking people off the streets. City Councilor in Boston, Liz Burden, talked about Wednesday morning, a mother apprehended while bringing a child to the high school, to Brighton High School. The parent was apprehended and a child was left in the car, an elementary age school child was left in the car. Then we had the case of Gustavo Oliveira on Milford, who was taken into custody at 16 by ICE agents after he got a sandwich in Milford, and the Department of Homeland Security said he wasn't the intended target. They had no idea he was a minor. There's some really scary things happening. I know you talked about people's rights in these situations, but boy, it doesn't seem to me like they have any rights most of the time. They just get put in the car and will ask questions or answer them maybe later and maybe not.
The ICE enforcement, the ICE surge we're seeing is horrifying. And I say that because, Marjorie, you just mentioned cases that are public. There are so many cases that are not, and that do involve minors, and I think for those reasons they're not public. And I, along with other community-based organizations, and there are a lot of community-based organizations on the ground that we're working with, including the governor, who I just met with, along with a whole host of community organizations, just met with Mayor Wu, given the surge. There are a lot of folks on the ground who do this work with us, but it's rapid response. It's ensuring people have access to lawyers immediately, ensuring they have access to bond, and even as they change the rules of who's eligible for bond, ensuring they do know what their rights are, because when they do, they can actually not only get a lawyer quickly, but folks know who to call, when to call, with the hopes that you actually keep them here in Massachusetts so they are not in some clandestine way shipped off to another state, which makes it more difficult for us to advocate for them. In addition to that, we continue to show up on the legal side of things to protect TPS and other statuses. And if those statuses are extended, it obviously protects our people, including our large Haitian population.
Temporary
so they can
protected status for those.
That's right, who can stay here. So they're not picked up by ICE. So we're continuing to bring our lawsuits, continuing to support other states, California, D.C., not only in the ICE enforcement and racial profiling pieces, working with the ACLU as well, but also on the National Guard and the potential of the National Guard coming. So we're doing everything in our power, and we will. And we will take whatever paths we need to protect our people. At the same time, I'm very mindful, and so is the federal administration, as to what their authority here is when it comes to not only crafting immigration policies, and I may think they are cruel and harmful. They are. They do not promote public safety. They're only promoting fear. If you're picking up young people who have no criminal record or asylum seekers, we just heard a horrible story about someone who was a U.S. citizen getting cancer treatment and their husband was deported. And this person was deported while their relative is getting cancer treatment with no criminal record, right? So it is cruel and unusual policy, and yet they have the authority to craft these policies and to, as I'm looking at him on TV, to go to different places to make sure to bring about greater fear in our communities. So we will do our part, but this is where I also remind folks in the most loving way, even after looking at, I'll be candid, the abysmal turnout numbers in the recent Boston election.
I know.
People, voting matters. It absolutely matters. So, for example, in what we were just talking about, if you want the flag lowered for every political violence act in this country, voting matters. If you want an administration that is not picking up teenagers with no criminal record and who are doing everything right to go about accomplishing their dreams and contributing to our country and to our state, but yet being picked up, voting matters. Who's in these positions, crafting these policies, how they're even using your limited federal tax resources for these efforts versus, for example, collaborating with us on human trafficking, which hasn't slowed down, or drug trafficking, gun trafficking, which hasn't slowed down. That's your vote. And so I know a lot of folks think, I don't do politics. I don't trust you people. I get it. I'm out here trying to earn people's support every day by being transparent. We won't agree on everything, but at least being honest and straight. Voting matters, and I can't stress that enough. It has to couple what we're doing in the AG's office to protect our people and also what other stakeholders are doing as well.
That's Andrea Joy Campbell. She's the Attorney General. She's with us for the hour, live in the studio in Springfield. Let's go to Larry in Munson, I think. You're next. You're on with the Attorney General, and we're at NEPM Studios in Springfield. Hi, Larry.
How are you, Jim and Marjorie and AG Campbell? My question is for the AG. Will you investigate BlueHub Capital, or how can we trust you given that you haven't removed BlueHub as a charitable organization? It seems like BlueHub Capital is getting like special privileges.
Larry,
I
before
love
the
this.
Attorney General answers, I recognize your voice. Larry, you were on our studio. You're one of the plaintiffs in the litigation, right?
Yes, I was.
That's fine. I just
Yes,
want to.
I am.
Okay, can you briefly explain? We've talked to you about the shared appreciation mortgage and the BlueHub situation. Can you give a summary before you answer Larry's question, Attorney General?
So,
Is
first
that
of all,
okay?
yes.
Okay.
So, Larry, first of all, Larry, first of all, thank you for calling in. Before I talk a little bit about our stance and posture, because it actually aligns with, I think, where you are, I would love to hear, if this is okay,
Yeah.
Larry to share a little bit about what he experienced.
Whatever.
And the reason I asked, because we met with folks who were involved with BlueHub post the passage of that legislation, which I was not for giving them the exception or exemption in our consumer protection laws.
The only entity in the state that is exempt statutorily from consumer protection
Exactly,
laws.
which we opposed. And we also supported the lawsuit. But I only asked you, Larry, because one of the former tenants said, or tenants, I should say, one of the former consumers who had a BlueHub product is hearing their story. So I'm curious, Larry, I know quickly it's not my program, it's Jim and Marjorie's, but if you could
Appears to
share,
be
and
your
then I'll
program now.
add.
You know, Larry, before you do this, let me just say one thing so we don't totally lose people. Let me explain what a shared appreciation mortgage is, which I never heard of till 6 months ago, I must admit. This is a mortgage you sign. Your home is about to be foreclosed on by a bank. BlueHub, it's the only company in the state, I believe, that does this, goes in, buys the about to be foreclosed upon property from the bank, sells it back to the homeowner, and at a 25% margin they add, plus a little higher interest rate, but you get to stay in your home. A shared appreciation mortgage, which some of the plaintiffs, and the judge affirmed this, people didn't know they were signing, says if you either refinance or sell your home at some future date, a significant share of the profit that you may achieve is given back to BlueHub. So, Larry, briefly, if you can, share with the listeners what your claim was.
Sure. So in 2017, I was looking for a mortgage, and I happened to hear about the mortgage company, BlueHub Capital. At that time, it was Boston Community Capital. So I contacted them and had a nice chat with them over the phone, and they said, come down and talk to us. We can help you. So my wife and I went down there, and we sat down with them and talked with them, and they seemed like really nice people. They seemed very honest, and they said over and over again that they were a nonprofit. So we thought we were in good hands. We felt safe. So we actually signed up with them. One of the bad things about it was the fact that the interest rate was so high, 6.375, which was double about what the going rate was then. But we, my wife and I at the time said, look, if it doesn't work out, we have pretty good credit. We can get another mortgage from somebody else. So about 11 months later, my wife and I, we got a mortgage from another bank, another mortgage company, and it was considerably less, the interest rate. So I got in touch with that bank. They said, sure, we can help you. Come on down and sign up, and you're good to go. So we did that, and in between that, we get a phone call from that mortgage company saying that, did you know you have a second mortgage? And I said, no, I don't have a second mortgage. I never signed a second mortgage. And they said, well, you better contact that mortgage company because they're claiming that you have what they call a SAM, or a shared appreciation mortgage. So I contacted them. They said, yeah, you signed it. You signed it here. Your initials are on the page. So I found out that, I got trapped into this thing, and I was real upset. But I knew I had to get out of it because if I didn't, my house was going up and up in cost. The rate, the price, everything was going to be more to their advantage. So I did whatever I could. I got whatever money I could, and I bought out of it. But so many people that are in our group cannot get
and Larry, if I may,
they are stuck.
If
the
I just may
balloon
here,
payment.
people like you became plaintiffs in this lawsuit, and a judge ruled, I guess, roughly about 2 weeks ago, after 5 years of litigation, or 5 years of the case pending, I should say, that BlueHub, this only company in the state exempt from consumer protection laws, had engaged in predatory lending. And Larry, really appreciate your calling. We were going to bring this up with the Attorney General. You've proposed some regulations that would address this issue going forward. If you could address that briefly and address Larry's question as to whether or not you're looking into whether or not BlueHub should continue to have nonprofit status.
So that's not what we're looking into right now. What we're primarily focused on is two fronts. One is we followed that lawsuit and we got involved, and when I say supported, we actually filed an amicus because one of the questions the court had to deal with is should the statute be applied retroactively? BlueHub was saying no. We said yes.
By the way, BlueHub said no, even though the head of the company had testified in front of the legislature, Elise Cherry, that it was not retroactive, and then her lawyers argued that it was.
So we inserted ourselves there, also listening, of course, to people like Larry and others who've come forward to the office. The second is we are still in the process of soliciting feedback from folks on our regulations. So, Larry, I would actually maybe encourage you to stay on because we've met with a lot of folks who've not had a great experience. BlueHub will lift up some people who have. I don't discount that, but folks who have not. And so we've actually brought them into the fold in developing these regulations. One, in terms of greater transparency and what he just talked about, some of the practices in terms of how we sell things, et cetera. So I'm not going to get in the weeds because we can be here for another 10 minutes.
One non-weed is you're saying that part of the regulation should be that the homeowner knows what the end game is,
Absolutely.
what the end bottom line would be with whatever the shared appreciation or whatever it is.
Which they didn't, of course, to his point, they didn't know. So we've been in the weeds with constituents. And why I wanted Larry to share a little bit more, because I think people often say, well, the AG is, bad for business. Not all the time, but sometimes we get this frame from folks and we say, no, we appreciate innovation or products, financial products that will help our people stay in their homes, help them grow their wealth. We support that. But where there are companies where we know we're getting reports from consumers about significant harm to what Larry just described, we also have a role to protect them too. And no one else has a role but us. That is our unique responsibility. And so in this case, we're engaging folks like Larry on the on the drafting and the crafting of these regulations. And before they become final, making sure their voices and stories are inserted. And as one of she would say she was a victim of BlueHub, said to us in our meeting, make sure we do not lose the voices of those who actually went through an experience with BlueHub. So, Larry, thank you for calling in. If you want to stay on, we can stay on with you.
Stay on, we'll get your contact
and sort of pull you into some of those conversations internally.
Before we get a break, if people want to learn more about this, because I think it matters, we had both sides on separately. We had a couple of the plaintiffs, including Larry, Bruce Marks from NACA, which was the organization that supported it, and several weeks later, we had Elise Cherry, head of BlueHub, and a housing activist from Western Mass who actually supports BlueHub. Let's go to Pierre, somewhere in Massachusetts. You're on with A.G. Campbell. Hi, Pierre.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
Thank you. My entire family was evicted without any notice, and we lost everything, including irreparable business records. And I have heard from others that it is happening more and more since the housing court suspended the due process for eviction. My question for the Attorney General, will you commit to working with Mass Alliance Against Predatory Lending to restore the due process protection and stop this unlawful eviction that's going on now?
Pierre, thank you for the call, and we're really sorry.
I think you should, Pierre. I think Pierre should stay on because it sounds like your case is specific, and we have a whole division in the office, front-facing, that deals only with housing issues. So you should stay on. We've also been instrumental in whether it's the eviction sealing process, which has been going exceptionally well, but even beforehand, showing up in the housing court as best we can when people are not entitled to legal counsel, et cetera. So, and even funding mediation programs, et cetera. So, Pierre, if you could stay on, we can follow up with you, not only in the larger policy question, which, yes, we believe in due process, absolutely, especially for tenants. But specifically in your case, we would need to know more on how we can possibly help.
Pierre, don't hang up. One of our colleagues will take your contact information and share it with the Attorney General's office, and you'll hear from the Attorney General. It's that time. It's our monthly opportunity to discuss ballot questions. Now, you certified 44, which is the first step in the process to getting them on the ballot in 2026. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what we talk about every month. A mere 71% of the voters voted for question 1. Question 1 is not yet implemented. We have the auditor on who sponsored it, who says you're not acting in good faith. You say you need to hear more from the auditor in terms of correct me if I'm wrong, the full spectrum of that which she wants to audit in the legislature. Obviously, by saying that, you admit that some auditing is constitutionally permissible, or you're nodding in agreement. In all seriousness here, the only people getting screwed in this thing are the 71% of the voters, including you, by the way, who told us on the air you voted for this thing, as did the governor. I find it incredible that smart grown-ups, the auditor, you, your staff, can't reach some sort of accommodation so the public will can be honored here. Where are we?
I don't disagree. And I'm putting this on the auditor. We have had very straight conversations with her team and the auditor over the years and made it crystal clear. If you are limiting your audit to, say, financials or other things, fine. But if you're going beyond that, which she at different moments has said she wants to, it has changed at different times in letters or in conversations. If you're going beyond that, there is a chance it is unconstitutional. So if we're going into a court, the court will ask us, one, what is the legal theory as to why you're here? What do you think is the authority you have to audit the legislature? What's the scope of it? Because it will be limited and possibly unconstitutional if it goes too far, etc. And then we even took it a step further of late and said, if you still want representation and you don't want it to be us directly, we can SAG, we can do a special appointment of an attorney general. We sent correspondence to that effect saying we still need more details even to do that type of appointment. We haven't heard anything. Crickets.
They didn't respond to them?
Crickets. And so this is why I don't want to sort of get in this tit for tat, because I agree with you. We have no time to waste. Given the issues we even just talked about on this call thus far, I don't want to discount transparency, full transparency and accountability for any elected body. I'm fully for that, have been since I was on the city council. Yet we cannot make a move unless we are getting what we need from the auditor. And to my frustration, along with the team, that's not what we're getting.
Okay, if I may, I'm going to be a broken record for 30 seconds, then we'll move on to the next question. I've asked you this before. What I do not understand is the following. Why can't you said we need the full scope of what you ever may choose to audit the legislature on. Why can't she submit X and say, these are my immediate plans? You either approve them or disapprove them. If down the line she says, I'm going to expand the audit to other things, you can approve or disapprove them. Why can't this be piecemeal rather than asking her to give you the whole bowl of wax before you? I really don't understand
because
that
it
at
is
all.
about transparency, credibility when you go into the courts. And based on the rhetoric.
Why can't you say based on what I know now, based upon what the
Because we can't
auditor...
do that. And why is that? Based on our correspondence with her, based on our conversations with her and her team, some written, some not, based on even her commentary publicly, the court is not immune. You've said several things. So if you can't go in and say, I only want their finances, for example, if we have seen and heard you say you want to go beyond that, then it's disingenuous to then go before a court or a judge to say, well, we only want to do this now, when that's disingenuous. When you've said or suggested you want to bring the scope of that audit farther, then just be clear with the court up front. Say, bring it all and let the court decide then what is constitutional, what isn't. But we haven't gotten that. And we will be laughed out of court if we go before any judge. I don't care if it's this, our federal Trump work, and accountability work, or any case. We've established credibility as an office for upholding the law and doing it in a thoughtful, honest, and straightforward way. Even in cases we don't necessarily like, we have built that credibility. A judge would laugh us out of court and frankly say, shame on you for not coming with a full and complete picture.
Okay.
So we're waiting for that.
We're talking to Andrea Joy Campbell. She's the Attorney General of Massachusetts.
Coming to you from Springfield.
Coming to you from Springfield. Thank you.
So, Attorney General, Elon Musk was in the news today in the Globe because he was the target of 170 consumer complaints to your office in February and March, the most ever filed against an individual in a 2-month against an individual, in a 2-month period. Elon Musk.
So this was at the outset when we were dealing with some of the initial actions, of course, by the federal administration, almost around the same time we were dealing with birthright citizenship and them looking to dismantle that. We got complaints based on the fact that Elon Musk and Doge, that newly created entity, wanted to take people's personal information and tax information and use it for whatever purpose nobody knew. So I, along with several other Democratic AGs, mobilized quickly, got into court and won a preliminary injunction to stop him and Doge from doing that. And that is still in effect. If anything, other states that don't have a Democratic AG, but maybe have a Democratic governor who wants these same protections, are looking to sort of join some of our efforts. And so those complaints speak to folks in Massachusetts who are essentially saying, I'll be candid, hell no, you don't get my tax information to do whatever you want and not explain to us publicly why you want our information. And this is regardless of how people voted. This is data security, data sensitivity. And so I think the Globe and others are beginning to sort of ask questions on what the complaints are to our office and maybe other entities too.
Doesn't he have our tax information in Doge already?
So our preliminary injunction says they might have tried to get it, or maybe they got it. You cannot use it.
Okay.
And there's real power in that. I don't want to discount. We have now over 30 lawsuits against the Trump administration and really significant preliminary injunction wins. This is one of them. The other one that I think got lost, which is sad when at the start of school, is our case against the federal administration for trying to take away billions in public education funding. We filed a lawsuit instantly, and they immediately got that lawsuit reevaluated, and ultimately turned on all of that funding, essentially before school started, because of our litigation efforts. And so we will continue to hold them accountable. We're not everything, but at least picking and choosing our battles, especially when it comes to data security, when it comes to also federal funding, where we get millions of dollars from the federal administration for public education, public health, NIH funding, and so much more.
Sarah in Hubbardston, you're on with the Attorney General. Hi.
Hi. Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I was calling to see what the Attorney General's thoughts are on towns denying people access to town resources based on the amount of property tax they pay. So, for example, the town of Wellfleet, if you pay under $1,000 in property tax, you can't purchase passes to access town parking lots at the beach, where people who pay over $1,000 can, and visitors to the town can too. So there's this little minute group that for some reason can't. Same with taxpayer shellfishing permit.
I didn't
Sarah?
know that. Wow.
Is it Sarah?
Sarah, it is Sarah.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for calling in from Wellfleet. I love Wellfleet.
I'm in Hubbardston.
She's in Hubbardston, but
Oh, I
obviously
didn't
she has
know
a
that.
Wellfleet connection too.
So is this true for not just Wellfleet? You said town, so is it more than one town?
Yes, there's some other towns on the Cape that have similar regulations in place. So I believe Brewster,
Oh, okay.
and I think Dennis as
Okay.
well. I
So-
don't know if there's more, but
So I'm
Sarah-
curious, if you're only paying $1,000
I'd
in
never
property
heard of
taxes,
this.
what are you living in? A
So-
closet down there, it would seem like.
so
It's expensive.
we
to
own a
live.
piece of land there. We've owned since the 90s, and we have a home in North Eastham, and have gotten parking passes in Wellfleet for decades.
Okay.
And they changed their regulations in December that you can't.
Got it.
Okay, let's hear what the
Wow.
Attorney General has to say.
Sarah,
Yeah.
I'm not in the weeds on that, but can you do me a favor, and I'll never get your town wrong ever again. Can you stay on and just leave your contact information, so not only we can get more information and then follow up through our municipal law unit and others, we approve bylaws, et cetera. So I don't know about this particular one, but would want to learn more and go from there for sure.
Sarah, stay on the line.
Please stay on.
Don't go away. We're running short on time, but this is an important one. Marjorie talks about this almost every day.
What?
Debbie asked via the GBH Daily Newsletter, the power of the ballot. She's quoting you. How can we assure we'll be able to vote in coming elections
yes.
when Trump
Yes.
is trying to take control of electoral districts? He has talked, for people who have not heard Marjorie say this, he's talked about having to potentially send the military in because he has real problems with the rigged voting machines around the country. Are you preparing for this possibility come midterms?
I feel like we're preparing for everything. And a lot of the election work we're doing, particularly standing up for early voting, mail-in voting, which we have here in Massachusetts, we're actually supporting other states where this is under threat, either by their state legislature, their governor, or the federal administration. So we're actively in the weeds here, and we're staying in contact. But this is why I think, frankly, even against the threats or whatever they attempt to do, this is why we need to mobilize. And sometimes in some elections, you've heard about people waiting in line. And I reflect on the history of even black folks once they got the right to vote, the beatings they incurred, horrific, or frankly, death, right? Never being able to vote. Or if they did vote, they were lynched after. This is a time when we need to mobilize, stand in line, mobilize more people to make it crystal clear that regardless of what they bring at us, they will never be able to squash our democracy and, most importantly, one of the most fundamental foundations of it, the power of the vote.
Couple of things. One from Springfield. What's the status of your investigation into this Justin Hurst and the charge that he was trying to buy votes in the mayor election 2023?
More to say on that. It's still open, but once I can say something publicly, I will, and hopefully sooner than later.
Okay, and junk fees, briefly, if you can. I am junk fee
fees.
Obsessed.
Everyone should be.
Okay,
I will
so what
tell
are you doing? Briefly,
this
'cause we're
consumer
running short,
protection.
please.
So right now, our junk fee regulations just went into effect early this month. And it's twofold. One is to go after all of those hidden fees that you see in every transaction you probably deal with. So you go to buy a concert ticket, it says $69 when you get on the website. At the end, it's $180. Now we've required these vendors and service providers to make that clear up front to our consumers what those fees are, the total price, what the fees are, et cetera, so you can make an informed decision and go elsewhere. We've already seen changes in the practices of companies. And then the other part of this is all of those what we call a negative option sort of contracts where these auto renews or you sign up through, say, an email, but then you can't actually get out of that contract through an email. If you notice, of late, you should have gotten, if you're a sort of Prime member of Amazon, there are emails going out that people are receiving for the first time because of our junk fee regulations where they say we're about to auto renew. Are we okay to do that? Sometimes the rate or fee has changed. You didn't know that before.
Yeah.
You just got a bill with hundreds of dollars a year later thinking, I just signed up for a trial offer. Why am I still paying? Now they're required to notify you up front and also to let you know if there's been a change in price, et cetera. So this is a game changer. Federal government stepping away from consumer protection. We are not. Affordability, cost of living crisis still exists in Massachusetts. This is one tangible way to take it on.
And let me be clear, this applies to all junk fees except airlines because the airlines are
federally regulated. And so
any other junk fee, for whether it's a meal or a membership or whatever the hell it is covered by this deal.
And there's some exceptions for certain industries if they're regulated by somebody else. Airlines, of course, we would have loved to go after them, but we can't. We're prohibited federally. Another reason you should vote and have people change that. But this is a game changer. If you are, you should see the changes. And most importantly, check out our website, mass.gov/AGO. We put a ton of stuff there on junk fees, and we're really proud of it because no one is doing the consumer protection work like we are in terms of bringing about real solutions that will help you keep money in your pockets.
It's nice to see you.
It's great to see you.
Thanks
It's
for
great to
coming
be
out.
in Western Mass.
I know, isn't this a gorgeous studio?
It's
Look
so
at the
great to be here.
exposed brick and all that.
And kudos to you all for coming out here and setting up shop. Because Western Mass, like many parts of the state, feel left out and left behind. And we tell them all the time, we love Western Mass as far as true Western Mass, Berkshire County, love Springfield. We have an office here in Springfield, too, of hardworking folks. So folks should stay in touch with our office and stay in touch with me as your Attorney General. I'm proud to be your AG.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, AG. Appreciate it.